Hello! We are feeling the spring. And in this update, you can see us preparing the greenhouse for the first seedlings to move there, using the seeding machine to seed our first plants directly, building a new raised bed in the market garden, and doing some plant transplants. We're also preparing for a potato seeding in the end of April and building a new big project. There wasn't much happening over winter in the greenhouse, except for some plants slowly dying away. In this case, we wanted to keep our capsicum plants for a second season, but it didn't work and they all died. At least our herbs survived. Last year we prepared all our shelves, stands and tables and stored it away in the attic. So this year it was a really fast task to build it up again. However, after only about 2 hours, already a third of the space was filled with young seedlings. In this case, it's cabbage.
In the last weeks you already have seen us prepare the beds, and now it was finally time to also start the seeding process. Unfortunately, it was quite windy at that day, which made managing the foils quite a pain. Like always, we first use a fork to loosen up the ground. Then we try to make an even surface, which makes it easier for a seeding machine to put the seeds in the proper depth. Last but not least, we will water the beds, and in this case, there are carrots, we're also gonna water the foil. And before we know it, we were already done, and it was time for lunch anyway.
Lena, du musst mitlaufen, Schatzi. Komm.
Last year we built quite spontaneous some raised beds. This was a reaction to the massive invasion of snails that we had. As we have a little bit more time to react this year, we found a better place to put the raised beds and also wanted to improve the construction a little bit. We laid out a metal mesh so that mice and other animals couldn't get into it from the bottom and started working. As Kata here is showing, the work never ends with our small plants, and they want to be taken care of. So we put them in some new and bigger cups. This is a task which we all do. Every one of us has their own responsibility for particular culture, and we replanting and take care of them in turns. While Kata and Nini like to work outside, I prefer to work indoors. One of the downsides of our own planting earth is that it's not sterile, meaning there is a lot of seeds of other weeds, and in this case tomatoes in it, which grow next to our plants. This makes it necessary that we regularly weed those young plants. Something that we have to avoid in the next year, as it's taking way too much time. Also this week our potatoes arrived, In the last years, we weren't quite too pleased with the outcome, which may be mostly due to the fact that we don't know yet how to grow them the best in our soil. But we will try some new methods this year, including some metal containers with hay in them to grow them. And let's see, maybe that's a better solution at the property where we're at. But for now, they are in our young plant room to get some roots before we put them into the ground. We also continued to work on our secret project. There was one last beam which we needed, and as we had this left over from our folding door, we just needed to cut it open lengthwise so that we could make one enormous or quite big beam out of it. Although our big table saw can saw up to 12 until 14 centimeters, this beam has more than 16 centimeters, so we weren't able to cut it with it. We went for the push saw and used it from both sides to create two cuts, which left us with a 3 to 4 centimeter piece in the middle, which we initially wanted to saw open by hand. After a couple of minutes of using our handsaw, we switched to the table saw, as this would have used way too much time. And this saw, especially as it has a new blade on it, made short process, and we had it open. Next, we planed the surfaces, as they had some leftovers from the cut. In the next step, I created a joinery, or a joint, which should connect those two beams with each other. As this beam is too wide to cut through it with a circular saw, I decided to take once again a hand tool and hack away to the last 5 mils which were left over from the cut. To avoid any rip outs, I used a clamp at the end so the wood wouldn't fall down and rip away parts of the still used wood. Now there's just a need for some cleaning up with a planer, as this will become the gluing surface. When those two beams will be put on top of each other, this has to be as seamless as possible, as the bond between them is quite critical to the integrity of the beam. Multiple times I've checked if the surface is level with each other and also to the other surfaces, and at the very end I double checked with a 90 degrees angle if the whole surface is in a 90 degrees to the cutting faces. All in all, the cleaning and leveling process took way more time than cutting open and planing the whole beam. As I was satisfied with the quality of the joint, and at least to the level of my experience, I took one of those long drills, drilled 2 holes. Later on, there will be 2 hardwood dowels glued into them. And yes, I know the holes are not very straight, which doesn't matter for that particular piece, but I could have done a better job. This is what the final joinery looks like shortly before we glued it up. In the last videos you may have seen us multiple times gluing up beams to form bigger beams for this secret project, but this is the last time you will see us doing this, as this is also the last beam and one of the main beams that we needed. I kept it for last, as this will demand quite some space in the workshop, and I didn't want to have it laying around while I was still doing the other beams. And there you go. We've finally finished with gluing up the beams for this secret project. All 19 pieces. Hopefully in the next update video we can relieve what our secret project is. Most likely this will come in 3, not in as normal 2 weeks.
Thanks to all our helpers. This is the end of this video. See you soon. Lena, kom här nu.